system disruptions are not a probability. Power grids fail, networks crash, and human errors happen. Outages are an absolute certainty. The relevant question for an organization is no longer whether a catastrophic failure will occur, but how exactly the infrastructure is engineered to absorb the impact when it does. The core vulnerability lies in how we frame the problem. Most businesses treat disaster recovery as a reactive IT reflex, rather than a strictly calculated mathematical engineering parameter. When a crisis hits, executives often issue vague directives like, "Get the systems back online quickly." Without a rigid numerical target, engineering teams have no clear prioritization, and chaos takes over. True organizational resilience requires discarding these vague demands. It is built strictly on two uncompromising mathematical boundaries that dictate the entire design of your technical infrastructure. An organization attempting to survive a disruption without defining these exact metrics is effectively flying blind, no matter how advanced their servers or networks might be. This timeline models our operational constraints, beginning at the exact second a catastrophic outage occurs, time zero. Moving forward gives us the recovery time objective, or RTO. It defines the absolute maximum allowable downtime before suffering fatal financial loss. In an emergency, the word fast is useless. Engineering teams require a rigid, quantifiable countdown to operate against. Take a large-scale e-commerce platform. For them, every single minute of downtime translates directly to calculable financial hemorrhaging. Their RTO must be exceptionally tight. Contrast that with an internal corporate portal. It can tolerate extended downtime for several hours without critically damaging the business. Without this exact timeline, IT teams inevitably scatter their efforts during a crisis, prioritizing the wrong systems and burning through critical recovery minutes. The RTO calculation measures the business's survival window, quantifying exactly how much time can be bought before total collapse. But the time elapsed after a disaster is only half the equation. We also have to account for the critical data generated before the disaster struck. We return to time zero, this time looking backward into the past. This gives us the recovery point objective, or RPO. It dictates the absolute maximum threshold for acceptable data loss. The governing question here is precise. Exactly how far back in time can the organization afford to lose records before the operational impact becomes fatal? There is a severe industry blind spot here. Organizations routinely hyper-focus on getting systems back online while completely neglecting the integrity of the data itself. A core banking system cannot tolerate dropping even a single financial transaction. Its RPO must be driven as close to zero as technically possible. A content publishing company, however, can easily absorb losing the last hour of drafted articles. Their historical archive remains secure, even if recent inputs are dropped. An organization can eventually power through a temporary system blackout. It cannot survive permanent data amnesia. These combined RPO and RTO metrics function as structural blueprints for the physical engineering of the system. The exact distance of those brackets from time zero determines your data center design, your replication strategy, and your required capital expenditure. Shrinking the data bound forces a structural shift. You can no longer rely on cheap daily backups. The architecture must upgrade to continuous, real-time synchronous mirroring. Attempting to cut costs on backup infrastructure or bandwidth to save money today simply guarantees an exponential financial loss during an actual crisis. Fact: it is physically impossible to engineer a low-latency, zero-data loss recovery mechanism on a high-latency, bargain budget. Having perfect metrics and state-of-the-art server clusters is entirely useless without the operational rigor to execute them. First, IT departments cannot simply guess these metrics. RTO and RPO must be derived directly from business leaders by ruthlessly quantifying the hourly financial cost of downtime. Second, you have to expose the ink-on-paper fallacy. If a disaster recovery plan has not been actively broken and tested in a production environment, it will inevitably fail during a real crisis. Third, manual processes must be replaced by automation. Automated recovery scripts eliminate human panic, drastically reduce your RTO, and enforce operational trust across the network. Finally, establish a rigid crisis communication protocol defining exactly who reports what and when. The fastest technical fix in the world is functionally useless if executives and stakeholders are left trapped in an information vacuum without clear updates. If an organization has not strictly defined its acceptable boundaries for lost time and lost data, its high-end infrastructure provides nothing but an illusion of security against the inevitable disaster.